Happy Wednesday, everybody, on this morning after Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
Lots of results we need to go over this morning.
We've been talking about it all morning long,
that's
and we're
right.
starting off with some pretty breaking news.
That's right. Breaking news in the race for the White House. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley announcing in the last hour or so that she is ending her campaign for presidency. We're expecting her to speak this morning, 10 a.m. in Charleston. It comes after what was another tough night for her. Haley only was able to pick up one win on Super Tuesday. That was the state of Vermont. Her exit now hands the GOP nomination to former President Donald Trump. Now almost guarantees that we're going to see a rematch between Mr. Trump and President Biden in the general election.
We say breaking news, but a lot of people did predict that this would happen at Super Tuesday. A lot of people thought she would bow out long before this.
Several weeks ago, because she stayed in this race and I think, tried to keep going. But at some point, you've got to have the wins behind you to sustain a campaign.
Well, meanwhile, results are pouring in following high-stakes primaries here in North Carolina, and now the most-watched governor's race in the country is set.
Yep. Democrat Attorney General Josh Stein and Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson easily winning their party's nominations, shaping up to be one of the most expensive races across the country. Both candidates now looking towards November.
As your governor, I will keep working to lower costs, raise the minimum wage, and cut taxes for working families.
The vision, the call, the mission is to grow this state, to grow its economy, as we like to say, from Murphy to Manio.
Meanwhile, we continue to follow breaking news. Two major races likely headed for a runoff in the battle for the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor. Two candidates remain at the top. Hal Weatherman receiving the most votes, with Jim O'Neill trailing behind in a race with 11 candidates. Meanwhile, in the 6th congressional district, Trump-backed candidate Addison McDowell is looking to take on former Congressman Mark Walker. The runoff expected to take place May 14th. And Ben is here at the touchboard with more on breaking down those big races and the results this morning. Ben.
Yeah, we'll start with some of those congressional races, and then we'll move to the Attorney General's case. First up, Mark Harris making a big political comeback after that 2018 scandal rocked his campaign when it comes to election fraud. Take a look, getting about 30% of the vote, the threshold needed to avoid a runoff, beating out Alan Balcom, a businessman, as well as John Bradford, a state legislator. Also, worth noting, he did pretty well, not only in the Charlotte suburbs right here, but also in some of these more rural areas as well. Moving on to District 10. This covers parts of Statesville, Newton, Lincolnton, all the way up to Winston-Salem. Pat Harrigan, Green Beret, beating out what was a competitive candidate, Gray Mills, just over 41% of the vote versus Mills, 38% of the vote. Mills, a well-known state lawmaker and attorney up around this area. Then let's go to District 14. This was not a close one. This is current North Carolina Speaker of the House, Tim Moore, getting 75% of the vote there. That includes lots of areas west of the city of Charlotte. And then finally, let's take a look at the Attorney General's race. Democratic Jeff Jackson, current congressman, was a state lawmaker at one point as well, getting just about 55% of that vote. That means he will now go on to face Dan Bishop, who's the Republican who ran unopposed. They will face each other and will be a contentious and also expensive race for Attorney General. Sarah.
Well, overnight, incumbent state superintendent Catherine Truitt losing out to far-right challenger Michelle Murrow. Murrow is a homeschool mom who focused her campaign around saying schools are too politicized. The Republican now set to face off against Democrat and former Superintendent Mo Green in November.
Finally, here in Mecklenburg County, longtime at-large Commissioner Pat Cotham will soon be out of a job. She finished 4th last night in the Democratic primary, receiving just over 17% of the votes. She released a statement last night saying, in part, "I have been a voice for many who have not had a voice. I do worry about who will be their voice after I complete my term." Now, it's worth noting, in previous races, Pat Cotham was always the top vote getter oftentimes, but she faced backlash after her daughter, State Representative Tricia Cotham, switched from Democratic Party to the Republican Party last year. It gave the GOP a supermajority in the General Assembly, passing some controversial issues.
You wonder how much of that with her daughter influenced the turnout with her, even though you think it shouldn't. But
it shouldn't, but you got to think, I mean, Pat Cotham has been a well-known politician here in Mecklenburg County for a long time. I can't think of any big controversial vote she's taken on county commission recently. So it's hard to point out anything else besides, I mean, what Tricia Cotham did, like her or not, I mean, it was really controversial. And I mean, even talking to Pat, I think the family was shocked by the reaction.
Yeah, because you had her on Flashpoint.
We had her on Flashpoint. We were talking about her campaign, when it comes to homelessness and beating it, which has been a long passion project of hers. But we also talked about her daughter and the race, and I think they've been shocked at some of the reaction, and I think you got to think that's some of what you're seeing in those numbers.
Well, that was big news when she switched parties.
It was big news. It was big news, and evidently the fallout's still happening. All right, folks, that is the latest as things went on Super Tuesday into this Wednesday morning. Keep it here on WCNC Charlotte, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.